You have a story about how it went down, which, by the way, we thought it was a good move. We thought if he was available in this draft, he would be considered one of the top quarterbacks. So how did it go down?
Well, really, there were 3 flashpoints, Colin, and I think it's no secret that the owner, David Tepper, had put some pressure on the football people to try to find a solution at the quarterback position. And it was pretty clear early on in the offseason that they didn't view Teddy Bridgewater as that solution. So, really, I think you want to look at 3 flashpoints. Number one, they put together a massive offer for Matthew Stafford. They offered the 8th overall pick, a 3rd rounder, and Teddy Bridgewater. Ultimately, the Rams wind up outbidding them, so they strike out there. Then they were very aggressive in looking at Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that situation is what it is, and they couldn't go forward with it the same way that maybe they had previously. And then the third piece of this really was the 49ers trade. And all they had to do was start counting and looking at how the quarterbacks were going to come off the board. And you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, quarterback at 1, quarterback at 2, quarterback at 3, maybe a quarterback at 4, and then another team could jump in front of us. So now the potential is there that there's not going to be a quarterback that we value at 8. And if we wait now, there's a good chance we're going to come out of this with Teddy Bridgewater and not a whole lot else. And so they had kind of kept the lines of communication open with the Jets going back to the middle of February and really liked a lot of things about Sam Darnold. There were some connections in the organization to Darnold. Matt Rule had talked to Sam Darnold when the Jets were looking at hiring Rule a couple of years ago. And so things kind of came together there. And, the best way to describe Sam Darnold going to Carolina right now is the Panthers are sort of throwing a dart at that quarterback board. They like him a lot, but he also doesn't constrict them from doing anything else in the position that they might want to do.
All right, multiple reporters I respect are now conflicted on San Francisco at 3. Some are saying it is Mac Jones. Peter King is saying, oh, no, it's not yet. What do we know about the Niners moving up to 3 in their quarterback selection?
I mean, I've been told for a couple of weeks now that they really viewed 5 quarterbacks in this draft as having first-round ability. Now, obviously, 2 of those are going to be off the board. We're all presuming those 2 are going to be Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. And, part of the reason why the Niners wanted to do the deal early and move up early and be aggressive about it when they were was so that they could kind of finish off the process and not have to hide, not have to kind of duck around to get information. They wanted to be able to do all of this out there in the open. And a big piece of it is getting to see the guys throw live. So they've already done that with Mac Jones. They'll get to do it with Justin Fields this week on Wednesday, and they'll get to do it with Trey Lance a week from today in Fargo. And here's what's really interesting about it, Colin. I do not deny that they like Mac Jones. There's a lot there that matches what Kyle Shanahan has liked in quarterbacks and valued in quarterbacks in the past. Consider this, though, for both Justin Fields and Trey Lance, right? Those second pro days are not going to be run by the throwing coaches. So John Beck's not running Justin Fields' pro day, and Quincy Avery isn't running Trey Lance's pro day. Both of those guys have agreed to let the NFL coaches on hand run those pro days. So the Niners are literally going to be able to go to Columbus and go to Fargo and tell those guys what to do. Here's what we need to see. And so I think this has really given the Niners a chance to take a look at 2 guys who I think most scouts would argue have more upside than Mac Jones in Trey Lance and Justin Fields and get a really thorough evaluation. And it's all because they were able to do that deal early.
All right, Atlanta number 4. I don't believe they will either take a quarterback because they'll trade out of it, or if they do have a pick, they probably won't get a quarterback. What are you hearing? Kyle Pitts, to me, after the quarterbacks are taken, is the only lock in this draft or one of a very short list. Your thoughts?
I've heard there's robust discussion in the organization about it, and I do think that there will be a quarterback that they like there at 4. The question is whether or not they like that quarterback enough to sort of reset their timeline organizationally. And the interesting thing about the Falcons, Colin, if you look at their roster, they need cheap young talent on that roster. But if you look at like the 7 or 8 best players in the team, there's actually a really strong core there, And so if they can fill out the rest of the roster, there's reason to believe that they could win over the next couple of years. And then maybe look at the quarterback transition in 2023, 2024. And you add that to the way that they've mortgaged Matt Ryan's contract. Separating from Matt Ryan's not going to be easy logistically from a financial standpoint either. And so these are all things that are being considered. And it's not just about how much they may like Trey Lance or Justin Fields. More so, it's about how that fits into where they are as a team. And I got to tell you, I mean, you look at the other two options, the idea of adding Kyle Pitts to an offense that already has a lot of high picks on the offensive line and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, or trading down and being able to add a bunch of role players to a roster that's pretty decent. You can see why the Falcons might look at that and say, if we feel like this core's got a chance to win, maybe we ought to give it a go for the next year or two and then reassess the quarterback position down the line.
By the way, there was a story last week. An agent, a coach, an executive, a scout were asked about Aaron Rodgers and the management in Green Bay, the relationship, which we all know is tense. Okay, we're not going to deny that. I mean, there's been stuff published for multiple years on that. Even Matt LaFleur comes in, it's not McCarthy, it's still tense. So one of the agent, I thought, had the most interesting thing to say. And the agent was like, I've talked to Green Bay. They're like, we'd love to do a deal, but, we have to get some things reworked. Well, Aaron's the number one cap hit in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Number one. I mean, Brady's like 120, right? Like, so it is somewhat of an issue. What do you make of that story? What do you make of the idea? The agent basically said he thinks Green Bay has gone to Aaron, and Aaron's like stubborn. That was kind of his guess. Your thoughts?
Well, here's what's interesting about it, Colin. This is a nuance, and Aaron's not the only one who has this sort of thing in his contract, but I actually went and found the actual language, and it even has like Aaron Rodgers' initials at the bottom of it. That's filed to the league and to the union. And the language in the contract reads that the Packers can automatically reconfigure his contract and take what's base salary money, convert it into bonus money, and automatically save $9 million on their salary cap right now, today. They have not done that. They don't need to go ask permission from him. It's something that can be done automatically and is part of the contract. So I think then your question becomes, well, why haven't they done that?
Right.
And that could play into like the approach in team building, because if you move that money forward, now all of a sudden you're mortgaging it. That bill is going to come due at some point, and the Packers typically haven't built their team that way. Aaron Rodgers wants them to act with some urgency. And I think, he looked at the way that he was eliminated and the team that eliminated him from the playoffs and the urgency with which the Bucs have built around Tom Brady and said, I want some of that. Well, how have the Bucs been able to pull that off, building with urgency? You know what they did, Colin? They mortgaged a bunch of contracts. They pushed money forward. They said, we're going to worry about that stuff when Tom Brady is gone. And so that's what's so interesting about this, is that the Packers have an automatic lever in that contract that allows them to do to Aaron Rodgers' contract what the Bucs have done to a bunch of contracts to build with more urgency, and the Packers have not yet done it. So I think that's like sort of a nuance here and something that everyone should keep an eye on as we go forward, because I do think that they could sit down with Aaron and say, we're going to do this, and here's how we're going to use the money we've saved. That hasn't happened yet, and I'm not sure why.
Albert Breer on a Monday. Thanks, man. Great talking to you.
All right. Thanks, Colin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.